The world has a history of criminals, but in the South American country of Colombia, there was a criminal who was not only dangerous and powerful, but was also the seventh richest person in the world. This uncrowned king of the cocaine empire was the owner of $25 billion in the late 1980s. At that time, the total GDP of Colombia was about $39 billion. That is, he alone used to roam around with about 65% of his country's GDP in his pocket. He was so rich that his gang did not count the money, but weighed it in pounds. He had to store his wealth in warehouses, where 10% of his earnings were eaten up by rats every year. He used to spend money like water on his favorite things like buildings, islands, private zoos, soccer fields, cars, submarines, and airplanes. Not only this, he burnt millions of dollars in fire to save his daughter from the cold. Even after doing all this, his wealth did not decrease by even a bit. The world's biggest and richest drug mafia had only one law: plata o plomo. Plata meant that if you join me, I will make you so rich that your 7 generations will live off it. And plomo meant that if you go against me, not just you, I will destroy your entire family. Because of this dangerous rule of his, be it the police, ministers, journalists, or judges, everyone was in his pocket. Whoever went against him, he killed them. In his crime story, he killed more than 4,000 people, out of which more than 600 were police officers only. His fear was so much that people's soul trembled at his name, and his power was so much that the country's constitution was changed at his command. Even if he was arrested, it was only on the condition that the jail would be built by him and the jail guards would also be his. This story, which contains many such exciting aspects, is of the world's biggest and richest drug lord, Pablo Escobar. He made such a mark in the world of crime that even after more than 20 years of his death, there has been no one like him.
Authorities as Colombia's leading exporter of cocaine. The Escobar family has reportedly amassed nearly $2 billion, smuggling 1,100 pounds of refined cocaine into the United States every month.
Drug trafficker, billionaire, killer, but a hero to thousands in his home city.
His cocaine king's only son has now claimed his father took his own life.
He had become a cancer to Colombia.
Escobar was a monster. I wish he would have spent the rest of his life in prison. I mean, that's what I wanted.
Yo soy Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria.
Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria was born on the 1st of December 1949 in Rio Negro, Colombia. He was the third of 3 children of his parents. His father was a farmer and mother a school teacher. Soon after his birth, his family shifted to Medellin, where Pablo grew up and did his early education in the school there. Initially, he dreamed of becoming a lawyer and then a president by going into politics. But with increasing age, his perspective and interest started changing. He understood that the most powerful person in the world is the one who has money. If there is money, then lawyers and politicians, everyone can be kept in the pocket. He understood the importance of money even more when he had to leave his studies midway due to the poor financial condition of the house. After leaving studies, he decided that he has to earn a lot of money quickly, no matter what path he has to take for that. He promised himself that if he did not earn 1 million pesos by the age of 25, he would commit suicide. This desire to become rich quickly pushed him into the world of crime. He started doing various illegal activities along with his cousin Gustavo Gaviria, which included selling fake diplomas, smuggling sound equipment, and stealing tombstones. But how long and how much could he become rich with these small thefts? Therefore, taking a big step, at the age of less than 20, he started stealing cars and kidnapping rich people. He used to earn a lot of money by stealing cars and selling their parts. At the same time, he used to kidnap rich people and collect a huge ransom in exchange for their release. If the victim's family refused to pay the money, he would brutally kill them. Many times, to establish his dominance, he would kill the victim despite getting the ransom. Something similar happened in 1971. When he kidnapped industrialist Diego Echevarria. He demanded $50,000 for his release. Diego's family paid the money, but Pablo still killed him. This series of theft and kidnapping continued. Fulfilling his promise to himself, he became a millionaire at the age of just 22. On one hand, his increasing criminal activities were making him dominant among other criminals, while on the other hand, he was also coming under the police's radar. After escaping the police many times, he was finally arrested in 1974 for stealing a car, due to which he had to spend several months in jail. Even after going to jail, Pablo's courage did not waver. Rather, he found a way to bribe the police and continued his work. Pablo's sole purpose was to earn money. Therefore, wherever he saw more earnings, he would enter that field. Earlier, he used to commit crimes like theft, fraud, kidnapping, and murder. But when he came across the cocaine business, all other work started to seem pale in front of its profits. This was the period of 1970, when Colombian drug smugglers were earning a lot of money by smuggling drugs into America. Whoever was in this business was getting rich. Seeing this opportunity as an opportunity, Pablo Escobar decided to enter this business. Initially, he worked for many drug mafias, from whom he learned the nuances of the drug business. He not only learned about the smuggling routes, but also established many important contacts in the drug world, which were going to be very useful for him in the future. Pablo knew very well that big success and big money cannot be earned by working for others. So after gaining a deep understanding of the world of drugs, he decided to form his own drug cartel. To establish his foothold in this business, his first target was to remove the big players from the way. With this objective, in 1975, he killed Medellín's biggest cocaine smuggler, Fabio Estrepo, and spared the lives of his men on the condition that they would all work for him. After this incident, the rest of the drug smugglers were afraid of Pablo, which made it easier for him to set up his business. The very next year, in 1976, Pablo became the head of his cartel. He had already established relations with cocaine producers, transportation experts, and some corrupt government officials. He used strange methods to supply cocaine. Sometimes he would supply cocaine by hiding it in car tires, sometimes in TV sets, sometimes inside the stomach of fish, and sometimes in condoms. Apart from this, he would also smuggle cocaine by filling it in airplane tires and would give $5 lakh for every flight to the pilot who helped him in doing this. In this way, due to his leadership ability, the cartel's business started growing rapidly, and he started earning a lot of money. When he had a lot of wealth, he bought submarines and planes to expand his business. With these, he started supplying cocaine to America from countries like Peru, Bolivia, and Ecuador, apart from Colombia. The surprising thing was that despite living around cocaine 24 hours a day, Pablo did not consume it himself. This was the reason why his companions trusted him a lot. While his business was going well, in 1976 itself, he married his girlfriend, Maria Victoria Henao. Maria was only 15 years old and 11 years younger than Pablo. But the year 1976 brought not only happiness and wealth in Pablo's life, but also prison bars. On the 9th of June 1976, in a raid by the Colombian intelligence agency, about 40 pounds of cocaine was recovered from the tires of Pablo's car. After this, Pablo and his 6 companions were arrested and put in jail. However, this time Pablo was not going to stay in jail for long. By now he had learned many tricks of the world of crime. He found a way out of jail by bribing some police officers, lawyers, and judges, and by threatening some. This is where he started his plata o plomo, money or bullet principle. It meant, take bribe and join me. I will fill you with money from top to bottom. Or take the bullet, that is, if you go against me, I will destroy you as well as your family. Be it a journalist or a police officer, a minister or a judge, he kept these 2 options in front of everyone. The result of this dangerous rule of his was that people started taking bribes from him out of fear, and his business started growing day by day. When the business started growing, the wealth also started increasing immensely. Pablo started looking for ways to earn even more money from that wealth. His cartel bought a lot of land on the Norman's Island of Bahamas. Along with this, a kilometer-long airstrip, many planes, a port, some boats and houses were bought there. A refrigerated warehouse was also built there to store cocaine. After this island became the central smuggling route of Pablo's Medellin cartel. This place was chosen very thoughtfully because the coast of Florida in America was much closer from here than Colombia, due to which cocaine could be sent inside America with more speed and ease from here. He also tied up with several drug cartels in Colombia with the offer that if they supplied their drugs through him, Pablo would pay them in full in case of any loss or being caught by the police. In this way, other cartels also started getting drugs supplied through him, for which Pablo would charge a large share of their profit. Pablo's strategy was working. In a jiffy, he had become a major player in the international drug trade, where 80% of the cocaine in the U.S. was being exported by him. Apart from the U.S., he had also captured a large part of the cocaine trade of Mexico, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Venezuela, and Spain. The result of this dangerous expansion was that he started earning $420 million every week from cocaine, due to which he was called the king of cocaine all over the world. Pablo's luck was at its peak. He was living the life of his dreams. He had so much money that he had to spend $2,500 every month on rubber bands to tie them. It would take several days to count the money, so it was weighed and accounted for and stored in a warehouse. Every year, about $2 billion were eaten up by rats or rotted away. Pablo's expenses were no less than his earnings. He had become the owner of many private planes, helicopters, cars, buildings, and bungalows. He spent the most on building a house in Medan, which he named Hacienda Nápoles. He built a house on 7,000 acres, the land of which alone was worth $63 million. He built his personal airport and heliport in that luxurious house. Along with this, he also built a personal zoo with several artificial lakes, 6 swimming pools, soccer fields, dinosaur statues, bullfighting arena, and tennis courts. Pablo Escobar's zoo had 200 kinds of animals, including elephants, lions, rhinoceroses, gazelles, zebras, hippopotamuses, camels, and ostriches. Some of these were not even found in Colombia, so he got them smuggled from foreign countries through his planes. Pablo had the world in his hands because of money. Whatever he wanted, he got it at a single gesture. He had earned so much wealth by then that not only he, but even his future generations, if they did not work, would still be able to survive on the money he earned. But he was so intoxicated with wealth and power that even this seemed less to him. To become even more powerful, he decided to fulfill his childhood dream and become a politician. His strategy was that if he became a big politician, he would remain safe from the law throughout his life. With this aim in mind, he started doing public welfare work. He built houses, hospitals, schools, churches, parks, and stadiums for the poor, which made him popular among the public, and his personality became like a Robin Hood among the people. Amidst his growing popularity, Pablo Escobar started campaigning for a seat in Colombia's parliament, and soon after, in November 1982, he was elected as a substitute for Jairo Ortega. Pablo had now become a member of the Colombian parliament. The world was shocked that Colombia's biggest criminal was in power in the country. The limit was crossed when he was once sent to Spain as an official representative of the Colombian government. It was difficult for anyone to digest this because Pablo Escobar was the one who supplied the most drugs in Spain. In this way, he made himself even more powerful by entering politics. His cartel's business was now running even more smoothly. His dream now was to make his political career so big that he could become the president of the country. But with such a big criminal record, he could not even save his parliament seat, let alone becoming the president. Soon the opposition party people started exposing his crimes, and he was openly questioned. His political career got a big blow when Justice Minister Rodrigo Lara Bonilla exposed him and started an investigation against him. His old cases were reopened during the investigation. Also, an order was given to confiscate his properties and planes bought from the money earned from drugs. The remaining task was completed when a newspaper named El Espectador published all these things and exposed the whole truth about Pablo to the world. While revealing all these incidents, the whole truth of Pablo Escobar was revealed to the world. Although everyone was aware of his illegal activities, but due to his fear, power, and bribery network, people kept quiet even after knowing everything. However, for how long could his crimes be ignored due to his high position in the country? Fearing that he might lose his wealth in the greed for power, Pablo Escobar resigned from his political seat in January 1984 and retired from politics. But burning in the fire of revenge, he brutally murdered Justice Minister Rodrigo Lara Bonilla and the editor of El Espectador newspaper. Pablo Escobar's increasing crimes had now become the biggest challenge for the government of Colombia, so an arrest warrant was issued against him, due to which he was forced to live in hiding. The government was facing criticism for not taking strict action against drug smugglers. Therefore, the Colombian government also signed an extradition agreement with the U.S., under which drug traffickers like Pablo were to be caught and handed over to the U.S. The U.S. wanted to keep Pablo, who was responsible for smuggling 80% of cocaine into the U.S., in its prison. At the same time, Pablo Escobar was also afraid of being caught by the U.S. He knew that in Colombia he could be free whenever he wanted, but once he went into the hands of the U.S., he would never be able to escape. That is why he put a condition before the Colombian government that if he was not handed over to the U.S. and kept in a Colombian prison, he would surrender. but the government refused to accept his condition. Later, he offered the government that if he was not given relief from the extradition agreement and was not handed over to the U.S., he would repay Colombia's debt of $10 billion. This deal to pay off the country's debt was good, but the government did not agree to this condition due to fear of disrepute. When Pablo could not achieve what he wanted, he resorted to bloodshed. He formed an organization named Los Extraditables against the extradition policy. Any senior official who spoke in favor of the extradition agreement was killed by Pablo. Apart from this, he funded the left-wing guerrillas known as M19, who attacked the Colombian Supreme Court in November 1985 and killed about half of the top judges. The Supreme Court was destroyed, and thousands of documents, including the extradition agreement, were burnt. In this way, Pablo waged a war against his own country. But even after doing all this, his troubles did not reduce. While Virgilio Barco Vargas signed an extradition treaty with the U.S. again as soon as he became the new president of the country, Colombian forces, with the help of U.S. agencies, raided his hideouts and started seizing his cocaine storage. Seeing himself surrounded from all sides, his rival Cali cartel also started targeting him. In this way, the Colombian government, the U.S. government, and now the Cali cartel were behind Pablo Escobar. This cartel not only killed many of its members, but also exploded 70 kilograms of dynamite right in front of his building. In return, Pablo killed many members of the Cali cartel and destroyed dozens of properties of the owner of that cartel with a bomb blast. Seeing the losses on both sides, this cartel war stopped, but the sword of America was still hanging over his head. Time passed, but neither the extradition agreement was canceled, nor Pablo's brutality stopped, and thus the year 1989 arrived. This year brought shocking figures for the world. One figure was of Pablo Escobar's net worth, which was around $25 billion, and according to this, he was the 7th richest person in the world. At the same time, another figure was of the murders being committed by Pablo, whose exact figure no one knew. But everyone knew that he was not only at the height of his wealth, but had also reached the peak of his bloody game. That year, his cartel carried out more than 100 bomb blasts in cities like Bogota, Medellin, Cali, Bucara, Manga, Cartagena, Barranquilla, and Pereira, in which hundreds of people died. Killing anyone was no longer a need for him, but had become his habit. He spared no one: citizens, rivals, police officers, journalists, ministers, and judges. Now the leaders who were going to become the new president of the country were also on his target. In August 1989, he killed the biggest contender for the post of president, Luis Carlos Galán. In November 1989, Avian Flight 203 was bombed to kill the other presidential candidate, Cesar Gaviria, in which more than 100 innocent people were killed. Luckily, Cesar Gaviria missed this flight, which saved his life, and he became the next president of the country. After this, the bloody game between the Colombian forces and Pablo continued for many months. While Pablo used to give huge rewards to the gangsters for killing as many police officers as possible, the Colombian forces killed many of his close associates involved in his crimes, including his cousin and right-hand Gustavo Gaviria, brother-in-law Fabio Hinao, and his cartel's second-in-command Rodriguez Gacha. Along with this, hundreds of his associates were arrested. This bloody conflict stopped when in 1991 the Colombian government repealed the law of handing over criminals to the U.S. Pablo Escobar is believed to be behind the change in this law, but he was not going to accept just this. He wanted even more concessions from the government on the basis of his terror. Therefore, he surrendered himself in June 1991 on the condition that he would stay in a prison built by himself, and the guards for the security of that prison would also be his own. He also put a condition that Colombian police should not be present within 12 miles of the prison. Seeing the continuous bomb blasts and murders carried out by him, the Colombian government was forced to accept this condition of his. This was the first time in history when a criminal was given so much comfort that he could live in a prison built by him. Pablo Escobar had done this miracle with his bullying. He built a luxurious prison named La Catedral for himself, whose rooms were no less than a 5-star hotel. The well-decorated rooms had big beds, TV sets, music players, imported furniture, personal library, and carpeted floors. Along with this, the prison also had pool rooms, bars, and soccer fields, where big celebrities, soccer players, and beauty queens used to come to meet him. Amidst all these facilities, he was not only living a luxurious life, but his business meetings were also going on without any interruption. Under his leadership, 15 tons of cocaine were being supplied every day within the U.S. alone, from which he was earning immense money. In this way, Pablo Escobar was in jail only in name. His stay there neither changed his routine, nor did it have any effect on his illegal business. For many months, he lived happily in the prison built by himself. But one day, when he tortured and brutally killed 2 members of his cartel, then the government's worries started increasing again. The government had understood that keeping Pablo in that prison would neither reduce his cocaine business nor his brutality. So it was decided to keep him under tight security. To catch him, on 22nd July 1992, Colombian forces attacked La Catedral prison, but by then it was too late. Pablo Escobar had already come to know about the government's plan through his sources, and he had escaped before the arrival of Colombian forces. His escape from prison was extremely embarrassing for the Colombian authorities. America was reprimanding them for this negligence. The American government wanted to stop the increasing drug supply in its country as soon as possible, for which it was most important to capture the cocaine king, Pablo Escobar. Therefore, taking strict measures, the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency, DEA, along with the Colombian police and army, formed an operation unit called Search Block to catch Pablo Escobar. Pablo Escobar had sown so many seeds of enmity during his rule that it was now difficult for him to survive for long. While the Colombian and U.S. governments were after him, a paramilitary group called Los Pepes had also emerged to eliminate him. This group was of Pablo's opponents and enemies, who also had the support of those families whose loved ones were killed by Pablo. He had killed more than 4,000 people in his life, including hundreds of policemen. From this, it can be guessed that how many thousands of people would support this group against him. Pablo Escobar, who was sitting at the peak of wealth and fame, had become everyone's enemy in no time. On one hand, the police were targeting his associates and members, while on the other hand, the Los Pepes group was also killing hundreds of his comrades. This was probably the first time when even his wealth of billions of rupees was not able to protect him. After escaping from jail, he somehow remained away from the police for about 1.5 years. But on 1 December 1993, when he was celebrating his 44th birthday by partying with his comrades at his secret hideout, he did not even know that this was going to be his last birthday. On the occasion of his birthday, he talked to his wife, children, and many of his special people on the phone for hours. Due to American technical assistance, the Colombian authorities traced these calls and found out his location. The very next day, on the 2nd of December 1993, the Colombian police raided a building in Medellin. On seeing the police, Pablo and his companions started running from the roof of the building. When the police chased them, Pablo started firing, due to which the police also started firing bullets at him. In this firing, Pablo was hit by several bullets, one after the other, due to which Pablo Escobar, the owner of billions of dollars, the culprit of the destruction of millions of people, and the murderer of thousands of people, died in a few seconds. However, one theory behind his death is that he shot himself. He often used to say that it would be better to be buried in the soil of Colombia than to rot in an American jail. The day he feels that the game is out of his hands, he will commit suicide. Whatever the reason, the world's biggest and richest drug mafia was dead. While this was a great achievement for the Colombian government, a crowd of about 25,000 people mourned his death at his funeral because he was the savior of many of them. After Pablo Escobar, there have been many drug mafias in the world, but he was the only one who was known as the King of Cocaine, who remained in the list of the world's richest people for 7 years.